welcome back everyone to the fifth of our five-part webinar series entitled Building Emotional Resilience. And this fifth section is titled Promoting Emotional Resilience in Multiple Service Sectors. I'm Nicole Parody, and I'm with the Alliance for the Advancement of Infant Mental Health, and we're pleased to bring this webinar series to you thanks to our partners in Tennessee, including the Allied Behavioral Health Solutions, the Association for Infant Mental Health in Tennessee, the Building Strong Brains Tennessee Initiative, through the Department of Human Services and the Tennessee Department of Health. We're really pleased again to be joined by some very experienced experts in the infant and early childhood field, including Kristina Figaro, Fran Jozefowicz, Melissa Threadgould, and Deborah Weatherston.
Thank you, Nicole. This series has been about emotional resilience, and it is the ability to form and have healthy relationships, effectively express and manage one's own feelings, and have confidence in one's ability to handle whatever life throws at you. And during this time of the pandemic, we've had a massive example of what life can throw at us. And I think that this is the future that we and our children and future generations will be challenged to handle.
We've spent time in previous webinars exploring a process that's central to diversity-informed, relationship-centered, reflective practice through the use of the four little words. Observe, listen, wonder, respond. Observe is how a parent might hold, or how a baby might look, or how we each talk to one another, expressing our emotions. Listen, all of us, to thoughts, feelings, and stories shared by one another, by parents. Wonder, to be curious about the meaning of the baby to the parent, to the feelings that lie behind anyone's behavior, the culture and community in which a family lives, feeling responses that really might inform our work, all of those things, and respond with interest to a family's experiences, each so different. As well, we want to share in the joy and their pain. Our last webinar, number 4, focused on holding these 4 words in mind to especially strengthen our reflective capacity when considering and making referrals for the families with infants, toddlers, and young children that we're really honored to serve.
So today we will be wrapping up our series with a bit more about observing and wondering, in conversation with our experienced professionals, Kristina and Melissa. Kristina and Melissa, during your career, you both have worked in collaboration with a variety of infant and early childhood providers, home visitors, early intervention Part C providers, child care providers, early education teachers, child welfare, and infant and early childhood mental health providers. I want to invite each of you to share an example or more of how the use of observation by one of these infant and early childhood professionals was key to the development of their relationship with the family and supported the development of emotional resilience. Melissa, I remember us talking at some point about a foster care worker whose use of observation and eventually wondering, I think. And these two always go together. You get an observation, then you wonder, then it makes you look and observe, and then you layer it on. So it's a continuous process.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I think I was telling you about a conversation that my staff person had with a foster care worker, and they'd worked together for some time and had a pretty informal relationship, so she felt comfortable wondering and being vulnerable with her. And so she was talking about this family that they had mutually, and where a little girl and her bio mom were separated by foster care, and the foster care worker had been with this family for some time. And the foster care worker had noticed that the little girl, whenever she needed something or just was unsure about what was happening, even if it was a thunderstorm, she would look to the foster care worker instead of the bio mom who was in the room with her. And this foster care worker paused for a moment, because many times she might say, oh, that child is really friendly. That child is very adaptable. She goes to anyone. But instead, she kind of positioned herself differently and had the little girl look to her bio mom for comfort, for help. And also, what I loved about this was the bio mom, she also gave her cues about what to look for if the little girl needed something. And that was huge. I just felt so excited about that, because I felt like that is developing resiliency for this family, and that is what is going to make them thrive.
Yes, and it was an example of taking the wondering to the next step. You know, what's next? And sounds like this foster care worker was quite skilled and had some understanding of relationship dynamics and development, and also a respect for the parent when kind of coaching the parent in responses and ways for the parent to be able to meet the child's needs. Thank you.
Yeah, she did it in a very sincere kind of way, so that the mom wouldn't feel like she was talking down to her. She was just saying, I know this is our visitation, but feel free to do for her. Don't have her look to me. You're her mom. Feel free to do for her. I thought that was beautiful.
Yeah, and I think that that's an example of what we've been talking about in the whole webinar, about not stopping on the surface. Like just in what you said, it seems that a foster care worker was very respectful, had some wonderings. Could the mom be thinking there was an expected script she needed to follow, and if she wasn't doing it right, you know, there was an awful lot of high quality relationship focused interaction going on just in that little snippet.
Kristina, I'd love to hear a bit about your work, in particular in a setting where you were working with medical staff. It's so unusual to have that opportunity. What did you help them see? What did you help them wonder about? I'd love to hear a little bit about that.
So yes, the opportunity to be an integrated mental health therapist is definitely a newer role. And so one of the things that I loved about this opportunity is that it allows us to come in and show our lens as therapists with the medical professionals. And we've had the opportunity to work with resident doctors and OBGYN clinics and really kind of help them shape their lens and how they observe and listen to their patients. And so one of the things that I most enjoyed was seeing how the doctors and all the medical staff, the medical assistants, the doctors and the nurses started to have different interactions with the patients. And so when moms would come in and were high risk patients due to dealing with maybe high blood pressure or diabetes during their pregnancy, that put themselves and babies at risk, and not understanding maybe why they weren't keeping their medical appointments as they should, or not keeping up with their logs and turning them in at weekly appointments. And so giving the doctors an opportunity to understand that there's other risk factors that could be getting in the way, and that could be preventing them from being able to follow this very strict diet that they had to be placed on, and not go in with the assumption that mom didn't care or wasn't concerned about baby, and really think about what was getting in the way of mom having the opportunity to do the things that had been asked of her. And so this allowed the doctors to really wonder about, how can I support this family in a way that they hadn't considered before? And so having the opportunity to talk with myself and our team and collaborate and think about how do we support this family in a whole way and not just medical, really help change the way families were seen and treated, and the return of moms maintaining medical appointments and coming back after labor and delivery and getting checked up on that 6-week checkup that we know is so important, and really just help them feel secure and that they could advocate for themselves and that they weren't being looked down upon because they didn't quite meet the standards of their doctor. And so this was just a wonderful opportunity to really make a connection in a way that wasn't typical and wasn't usually the experience of these moms.
I could see that non-compliance could make any healthcare professional quite angry or annoyed or frustrated and be a little bit sharp. But I wonder if you helped by creating just a little time and space for the resident docs or the other health providers to pause and think about the meaning behind these behaviors and maybe even the feelings that a pregnant woman is carrying. Observing and wondering really leads to greater empathy. I think that's a wonderful gift that you in your role have shared with practicing mental health health professionals and docs who are going to go out into the world and work with many other people.
It was a wonderful experience to see how doctors would shift and how patients would respond in a way that didn't feel so scary and frightening. And as we know with pregnancy, there's so many things that can occur during a pregnancy that already make it frightening. And so when you layer on medical issues, it really does change the trajectory of the pregnancy. And so to have the ability to help support doctors and patients come together and work together and explore that really was just, it's been wonderful to watch.
Thank you. Great story.
Melissa, I'm also remembering a short anecdote you told me about a Part C worker and observations and wonderings that particular Part C worker had.
Yeah, there's that cycle again, right? The observe, listen, wonder, respond. The Part C worker had gone out to this mom's house. She was working with this little guy, and the mom was there, and the little boy would be pretty regulated most of the time, pretty glued together, pretty responsive. But when mom sometimes would talk to the Part C worker in an informal way, a little bit unfiltered and negatively about dad, who didn't live in the household, this little boy, she observed, he would tend to fall apart then. And there was a pattern of this kind of being the antecedent that started him unraveling. And she wondered about his behavior and if he was trying to use every tool in his arsenal to say, hey mom, I don't want you to talk about this anymore. What did his behavior mean?
Right, I'm thinking that there's a need to figure out why it needed to stop for him. You know, what was the behavior meaning to him? And so there was another whole layer of observing and listening that would follow that would really be helpful to that child and that parent.
Yeah, the mom didn't like the behavioral escalations from him, so that was a good port for a good wondering to bring out to this mom to see if maybe they put a filter in place, if he could keep it together a little longer.
It is such important work that you all are doing, partnering on behalf of infants, young children, and their families. And we're hoping that the things that we have discussed during these 5 webinars will be of use to you as you continue to do this work. We hope we have whetted your appetite about being reflective in your work with infants, toddlers, preschoolers, their parents, and perhaps have awakened a desire in you to learn more about what that would entail for you in your work.
We invite you to think about and purposely use these 4 words or elements: observe, listen, wonder, and respond, that support diversity-informed, relationship-centered, reflective practice, and at the same time, strengthen emotional resilience in babies, young children, their families, and really the providers that you work with. They guide and steady us in our work, supporting capacity to observe, listen, wonder, and respond. Great gift.
And I want to thank all 4 of you for sharing your wisdom and your expertise with all of us, and really helping us to, as Fran said, really build a foundation that hopefully we can all build on in terms of learning how to help build and support emotional resilience, because it's such a key component for supporting families. So thank you all very much. And just a reminder that the infographic that describes the 4 little words and the handout version of these slides should be available from whatever website or portal that you access these webinars from. So we really encourage you to download those materials for further contemplation and use in your work. Thank you all.